All right. Afternoon, this is meeting of the facilities committee. It is Wednesday, May 7th. The time is 4:32. I'm Jennifer Coles, committee chair, Mr. Bennigan. Committee members in person, Mr. Woodson's online. Board members, Julie Medina, Mr. Holovic. I also had nice to meet you. Joseph Holovic in person. Nobody else online. On Evanston. We have superintendent here. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from April 1st.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Benedict,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Woodson. Any changes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That one passes. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action for the full board of the X-Spec for the East End School. Oh, yeah. One is, yeah,
Look the date, that's fine.
Each clip is everything for the season.
okay, so the other way.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us at the facilities committee meeting this evening. This evening, we're looking for approval for the ed spec for the proposed East End School. Give you a quick overview of what the project will look like, some of the details, and then we can start to discuss the ed spec. So, as you all know, we embarked on our facilities master plan roughly a year ago. As we started working through the facilities master plan, we saw that there was a part of town that had an extreme amount of cost needed to renovate many of the buildings. When we started digging into that part of town and looking at those specific buildings that needed the renovations, we realized that the state wouldn't be able to, or the state would not approve a grant based on the square footage or based on the acreage of the sites, and some other details. So what we started doing was looking at every buildable address in that zip code. And what we quickly found out, myself, Mike Zirkle, Mike Fiorello, and PJ, was that there aren't any buildable sites in that part of town. So we went through just about every address of the zip code, anything that was even close to feasible. We went out, did a road trip, sort of, took a look, pulled GIS to see if there was a way to make it work. And we quickly found out that there wasn't many opportunities in that part of town to be able to build a school. There were two parcels that did fit the bill. One is the Ren Brick parcel, which we did look at. The city has started to redevelop that. They tore down the shot towers and adjacent buildings, and they've done some remedial work there. But GE still holds the title to the environmentals on that site. So what that means is that if there is something on that site that calls out some sort of environmental, it could take GE up to 20 years or whatever the duration it takes them to be able to remediate that. And being that we have to remediate to a residential level, it just was not a feasible site for us. So we pivoted and we started looking at the Harding site. As many of you know, Harding is a dilapidated building at this point. There's been fire, vagrants. It's kind of heartbreaking when you drive by, but when we started looking at it, we saw a whole new vision for what could be at the Harding site moving forward for the school district, the students, the parents, and also the taxpayer. There's some benefits to the potential of a program there. So with that said, we went ahead and started looking at the parcel. And if you look at this overview, this is just a rudimentary site plan. It is to scale because we wanted to see if we can get all of the circulation of traffic in that area that has to do with the school itself on site. So what this does depict is that we're able to do everything on site, essentially taking the traffic from the school off of the roadways. As you know, this is a very busy area, congested, and being able to do everything on site was a big part of us wanting to execute on this program because it fits well. What we propose is a K-8, 840 student building, state of the art, net zero, meaning that we would generate our own utility on site, right, through many different sustainable opportunities. There aren't any net zeros in our urban school district, and we'd be the first. We feel confident that we can do this. We've been doing this type of work for a long time. We've been doing a lot of sustainable work in the schools to save the school district money. This past 4 years, we've been able to do LED lighting throughout the whole entire district. We've completed that, and we're saving $1 million a year. So we feel strongly, I'm sorry, pre-K. I feel strongly about our ability to make this happen. So we went ahead, laid it out, wanted to make sure that we can get the building on site. We're able to accomplish that. With that said, the next phase to the process was us looking at what the costs would be. So myself and Mike Zirkle, along with J&E, started looking at what the outlook is in the industries that are gonna have to come to a nexus in order to be able to build this site. Looking at inflation, looking at all the different factors that we've all had to deal with on a daily basis now. We took all of that into consideration, and our budget came out to about $120 million. But once again, we're not a construction company, but you know, we're pretty good at understanding what the needs to make this happen would be. We went ahead and had an outside construction company go ahead and give us an estimate, which is attached. Their estimate came back at $125 million. Now, said it's a lot of money, $125 million, and I truly understand. But there's a couple different things. So for instance, the school district pays 60-40 when it comes to new construction, right? But there are kickers at the state level. So the state level allows for additional reimbursement percentages based on different programming within a building. So one of those is pre-K, right? Pre-K is a hot topic, we all know at the state level, and it's a much needed piece of the educational foundation here in Bridgeport. You know, it's not just pre-K 4. We want to go to pre-K 3. We want to make sure that there's equity across the board where parents have this option and this opportunity. We're able to achieve that in this program because we wanted to put an emphasis on being able to deliver pre-K. So there's a premium on pre-K space here, which we do not have currently. Currently, we don't have space to expand on our pre-Ks, and this is a conversation that we have at the cabinet level on a regular basis. We've done analysis, the whole entire district, of where there may be opportunities. We don't have opportunities to have those the proper spaces with the restrooms and the size classrooms and all the needed aspects to deliver that program. We know that. We talk about that regularly. This gives us the ability to have a relief valve and start to address some of these issues, right, through the pre-K program. That's a kicker at the state level, right? That gives us an enhanced reimbursement. The other piece to that is that when it comes to energy efficiency, there's another kicker at the state level. So this is why you see our buildings are all LEED certified, because we get additional reimbursement through LEED certification, through sustainable components built into our program, making our, you know, and the way that we envision this as a net zero, which is the highest level of efficiency, is that this is not just about us building a highly efficient school, but building a teaching tool and starting to look at how we can integrate the future of the students here in Bridgeport into how we build our buildings moving forward. So $125 million, roughly 30% reimbursement currently. We're looking to get 90% reimbursement on this program. So we're talking about $12.5 million investment from the city to build 125 million state-of-the-art net zero building that addresses a lot of our issues in this part of town. So let's talk about these issues in this part of town. So we did the facilities master plan. The FCA is the facilities condition assessment. We went through every single building, every crawl space, every mechanical component, checked the envelope, windows, doors, grills. We looked at every aspect of our buildings. And as we went through, that part of town has buildings that are a lot older and vintage, and there wasn't an investment made in school construction. And you can tell by the vintage of buildings and the costs that it would take to get those buildings up to par. So we're talking about Beardsley, Edison, and Hall. Those three buildings need $60 million in tier one repairs. Now, we're not talking about anything outside of repairs, so $60 million. If we made that investment, that'll be 100% paid for by the taxpayer in Bridgeport with no reimbursement from the state. And we get nothing except for the building being repaired. There's no programming difference. There's no renovation. It's just us getting the building to a healthy and safe state. So
Just gonna ask anybody in the audience, if you needed to have a conversation, go outside. Yeah. Which more stuff? Whisper.
So with that said, $125 million, you say, wow, but we're talking about 60, right? But of the 125 million, there's the potential of us being able to make that happen for $12.5 million. When we look at what we do as an operation, we look at it from the fiscal lens, right? Because we understood it. We talked about the fiscal cliff. We talked about the impact of ESSER 2-3 years ago. The reason why we went and signed an MOU with UI to save that $1 million is understanding that we're going to come to this fiscal cliff, right? So this is just us continuing on that journey of trying to find the most efficient means to be able to deliver the highest level of service that we possibly can in an urban school district, right? So that's what we have in front of you this evening in terms of the East End School Ed Spec, K-12, 840 student, all on-site circulation, the ability to work with the city to not just build a school, but make sure that we look at the adjacency, right? The sidewalk, the urban edge there, clean that up, right? Make sure that that riprap wall where the field is, that rock wall that comes down, pushing that back, making a walking promenade, because guess what? Folks walk that block from the hospital in the neighborhood, making that safe and attractive for our students. That's what we are proposing this evening. And the Ed Spec is the document that pretty much just calls out the construction methods and what will be within the building, right? So your mechanicals, it gives a brief overview of the programming, but we're well ahead of programming. You know, the rationale behind it, obviously, this is based on studies that we've done. And then we get into talking about the interiors, the building systems, the construction bonuses that may apply here, site development, But there's another piece to this, right? It's just not us building a building for the sake of the children that are in much need of this. This is also about the neighborhood and tearing down that building that has been sitting there far too long. That's an eyesore, right? I drive by that building, it breaks my heart, My parents, they went through hard. We have a lineage here in Bridgeport, and we believe in the things that we do. Myself, my team, the folks at facilities. Any questions?
Let the record for the Mr. Trader is also during the call. Committee members, do you have any questions? Start, Mr. Benningham. Mr. Woodson.
No, not at this time, thank you.
Mr. Sokolovic.
Yes, quite a few. All right, now we're looking at, I'm looking at the document you gave me, seeing a couple of issues on it. First of there's like a typo on the top, needs to be fixed. And then we're talking about equity, saying all Edison and Beardsley, all on one side of the town. And we're referring to the master plan as having been adopted by the Bridgeport Board of Education. We did not adopt anything. Right now, that plan is a proposal which can be changed at any moment. And to consolidate Hall, Edison, and Beardsley into one building would require a vote of the board to go through the school closing process. So to put this forward towards the state as having a plan adopted is misleading. So the state should be aware that these plans could change at any moment. We've got an interceding election coming where new board should not be bound to close 3 schools before the election even happens. I've been trying, begging and pleading with this committee and the superintendent to move forward the master plan so we can discuss it and perhaps make amendments and changes to it in order to deal with these issues coming up. But Till we haven't had one actionable portion of this facilities master plan. There's several questions around this plan that need to be addressed. Like, why was Bryant dropped off? Why aren't we, everybody please don't react, don't freak out. Why aren't we redistricting the whole city to discover how to save transportation costs? What's gonna be the increased transportation costs for these schools? We say we could save $5-6 million, $10 million, even $20 million maybe on the building costs. That's city and state money. What about the operating costs? If we pay an extra $1 million to $2 million in buses, just because this plan is better for the city and for us, I'm not saying I'm against a new school. Absolutely 100%. These children deserve a new school. They deserve to learn in an environment. And they definitely deserve it. But this is not being approached in an equitable manner. To say it's approached in an equitable manner and to hold up, eyesore in the neighborhood for going on 3-4 years now, that's one building. We're talking about shutting down 3 buildings. You know, we're gonna move as fast and quickly on Harding. Only reason we're getting Harding is because the city couldn't get rid of it. What was the plan before the hospital fell through and said, no, they don't want it, and you gotta give us millions of dollars to repair it? What was the plan before that? If we didn't have Harding, then what? Why won't the state fund renovate as new in these 3 buildings? We've got 600, 700 students school at Winthrop that are moving on the north end. They're all moving into another school, repairing their school like brand new, and then they're moving back. Why can't this be a consideration on the East End? Why can't the same thoughts be given to them? And why are we only talking about the 3 schools on the East End? Why has Bryant dropped off the list? Bryant is in just in bad shape. There's more than 3 schools in our system that are underutilized and past their useful life. Is that not correct?
You want me to answer these questions?
No, well,
Yeah, you can do one at a time so they get here.
So,
Because you guys have,
Okay.
I write one down.
no,
I can answer one question just on the facilities master plan. The final version of the facilities master plan is not finished yet. It's gonna take about another 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before the company gives us the final version. So what you were looking at was a draft version at that point. They haven't given us the final copy yet that we can get out to you. I asked them yesterday for a concrete date, and they said either next week or the week after. They will let me know tomorrow on that date when they think that they're gonna have their final copy done.
Yeah, thank you. And just on that note, I just want to just say real quick, it's not a final plan.
No, I'm talking about final
To get
copy
to us.
from the company.
Right,
not
to get to, and we get confused.
I think just, I can't answer a couple of your questions. We're talking about Beardsley Hall and Edison. Right. When we did the cost analysis of these buildings, the top 4 elementary schools, capital needs per square foot, Beardsley Hall, Park City, and Edison are the top 4. When we look at elementary schools, capital needs per cost per student, Hall, Beardsley, and Edison. So we're not just picking these schools out of the sky saying, look, we want to go to this part of town and change everything. What we're doing is saying, we have needs, we have issues, we have an opportunity, we have a delegation that's prepared to go and fight for the dollars that we need and potentially the reimbursement rates that we need. We have a council that we've briefed and we talked to that feels strongly about this program also. So we have this opportunity and the time is right to make this happen. I understand that the worlds might not line up perfectly. I get that. But I've said it time and time again, in Bridgeport, opportunity comes and we talk ourselves out of opportunity. This is about children. This is about bottom dollars that the taxpayers have to pay in their taxes every single day. This is about us getting these kids into a building where they have a fighting chance. That's ADA compliant, that has air conditioning, that has the proper ventilation. We talk about air quality. We talk about all these things. We talk about the dearth, the gap in education, where you can't plug anything else in. Kids can't use the same technology as their peers in a newer building. Those are just the facts. And
Absolutely.
I'm not here to debate anything. I'm here to give recommendations. That's my job. And I'm here to do this based on data. This is not us coming to you, and you know we've come to you plenty of times having to do this work on our own. This is a third party. Now, a lot of this stuff we've talked about years in, year out. We talk about the same thing. Joe, you know it. You've agreed in the past. But here we are.
Disagree right now.
Here we are with the opportunity. Council is prepared, the delegation is prepared, the state is prepared. And this is not a program that happens overnight. This is a 4 or 5 year journey that we're gonna embark on.
Absolutely. And, okay, now, just want to, this point, follow questions and points. Everybody sitting here, no matter which side of the issue we're talking and debating, wants what's best for our children. Not one of us sitting in this room wants torn down buildings in our schools. We got different ways to get there. It needs to be thoroughly discussed and debated and analyzed. Because, yeah, we get the new buildings, but like I said, if we're doing $2 million more in buses, $1 million more in buses each and every year, that's coming out of the operating costs that the children will have to bear in reductions in their services. We need, I don't know why, Russia has said it's a 4 or 5 year process. The proposed master facility plan has these lots going out to bid. Not going out to bid, going for the bond either this school year or the next school year. This process feels rushed. We don't even know if it's gonna end up saving us money because the transportation costs can eat everything, because we haven't done that.
Can I answer that question briefly?
Sure.
In terms of rushing, I don't think we're rushing, taking this opportunity and embracing it, right? Number one, but number two is that every other city in the state right now is rushing to get projects on the list, right? And every time that we don't make this move, we risk that the state's gonna cap out on school construction. What happens if a year from now, the state says, look, we've taken on too many obligations, we're gonna have to kick the can for 5 years? Then what? This is not something that we're asking because we want to see a new building. This is something we're asking for because these buildings are in a state that it's in disrepair. They're not healthy. They're not safe. Those are the facts.
So it's an absolutely beyond a doubt that the state will never approve renovate as new for any of those schools that we're closing down.
They don't fit the criteria for a state grant. You need the acreage. Unless if we're going to do what we've done in the past based on the same state formulas of eminent domain. Are we gonna tell?
But we can't gut renovate these buildings as we did to
We
some.
can, but we're gonna pay 100%, and we're not gonna make them 88 compliant. And we're not talking about 60 million for the 3 of us. We're talking probably $80 million of building that the taxpayer of Bridgeport's gonna have that whole entire burden on their back. Based on us having to bond the full dollar amount to do that. And we're still not gonna be able to give them everything they need. Those are the facts.
I think the other thing, those 3 schools are K-6. So there's gonna be a continuum here of K-8. You are bumping those children out, the 7th and 8th graders that are in the neighborhood, because Beardsley, Hall, and Edison are K-6 schools. So you have to bust them out. With the advent of busing, it's a possibility that there would be and stay in the same school in that continuum. To be able to graduate, to be able to go on and graduate from 8th grade and go on to high school at that time. Right now, they are being moved, and sometimes when you really look at it, pre-K, they're somewhere else, they could be moved in, so they're doing 2 moves already, while other schools are only doing 1 move. If that, before they get to high school.
Right. And the final thing is, before we even get to the state, and before it goes to the board, definitely need to remove the misleading language that this plan was adopted. 'Cause it was- Page 1, number 2.
Okay.
Not adopt, we did not adopt anything. We need to fix the typos before it says.
Which path are you looking at?
Yeah.
The one he's.
May 2nd? The one that says May 2nd on the top?
He's going,
Long range, that you're still on the adopted part, or which part are you asking?
There was a revision that we sent. I don't know if.
Oh, yeah, the revision here.
Yeah.
Just this one.
I said, the packet I gave you
Still
was
saying nothing? No.
vision
That was revised.
with different regulators.
Awesome.
I think that might have been added.
Completely released.
Point of information, Madam Chair?
Yeah, that was revised last night. Yeah.
Point of information?
That was revised.
Okay, that's what we're fine.
It is no longer in the draft?
And,
No
there's
longer in the draft.
Okay, I had the same question.
Yeah,
and
no, we'll have it uploaded to the
I
portal.
read it this afternoon, had the exact same question, so
and it's talking about a lot of upgrades. If we're building a new building, we're putting in new stuff instead of rather than upgrading, we're not taking the whole stuff.
It's just a language used by the state. These are templates that are filled out. Portion of this was filled out by construction services, and then we followed up with some of the details.
Same is not in, ed specs for special education. No, but, yeah, no, but it's diametrically opposed to what you just said. The format should be going through to this second document that was prepared as well, but it's not, it's just being built new. Just like, yeah, but it does look like a template, but the template wasn't used. Okay, that's all the questions.
Thank you, yes. Just kind of from a peek at, I just switched things around.
All right, we'll go with Medina, then.
Um,
Draper.
You mentioned, for those that are in the room, you mentioned 60/40. That is for new construction, correct?
Yes.
What is the renovation new, numbers?
60/40 is building a new building.
Yep.
Renovating is new is 80/20. Rough.
80%,
Point something.
80% 20 for the renovations. And new is 60/40.
Yes.
You mentioned also the PK was gonna bring
Actually,
an
I'm sorry.
extra,
Let me give you the correct number for
please.
the new construction. Reimbursement rate is 68.57.
That's reimbursement rate.
That's the reimbursement rate from the state. So the city portion of that is 31.43%.
That's 68 point. Sorry.
5-7.
It's in your packet. The info's in your packet.
And the new one that we discussed? The new one we just got? Okay. You said PK, you mentioned the pre-K program brings in an incentive. What is that incentive for the PK?
I'm not sure exactly what the kickers are. The state decides those kickers.
You mentioned need certification, the net zero, that also brings an
Yes.
incentive.
Yes, so when you build a highly efficient building, the state also gives you a kicker because they want our buildings to be highly efficient, you know, because
That is the
I don't
percentage.
know, because those are negotiated by the legislators.
So. Where did you mentioned 90% reimbursement, so where did you get that number from?
That's a number we feel that is reasonable because we're looking at what other towns are doing. Other towns, like, let's take Stanford, for instance, who has plenty of money. They have just gotten, I believe, an 80/20 for school construction for the next 25 years. Their delegation negotiated that. Right now, the state is willing to do some things for school districts that are in need. They had a facilities master plan. They had $800 million worth of need in their school district. So the state took the fact that they had these issues in the school district and they were able to give them a different reimbursement rate for the next 20 to 25 years. That's when we started looking at that Winston, Connecticut. It went from 20% to 50% reimbursement. So when we started looking at those details, we said to ourselves, well, here in Bridgeport, we got some issues. And we sat down, spoke with the delegation, and we feel that they can request a 90% reimbursement rate. Those conversations they've been having. So we feel confident about that.
You said $60 million to repair tier 1. You had mentioned 2 schools. But then you talked about,
$60 million is what the FCA, the Facilities Condition Assessment, calls out in needs for Bearsley, Hall, and Hess.
Mentioned two, and then you said three later, so, and then you said at the three mark, you mentioned 80-something million.
I'm saying if we're gonna renovate those, if we're going to renovate those buildings, we're looking at around $80 million per building. Roughly, and those are estimates, right? But looking at construction cost, square footage, and what we've seen in the past, those are reasonable estimates.
It's pretty, because in the facilities master plan, there was 3 different tiers for each building. remember? So I think that's, so he's talking about tier 1, the immediate needs. like-
Yeah, but when he spoke today, he mentioned the 60 million, and he mentioned the
Yeah.
schools in tier 1, he said it clearly. But then he went back and mentioned something on 3 other schools or 3 schools, and then he mentioned 80 million, and I'm thinking my notes, I'm like, we went from 60 to 80.
No, that's
And we're
based
trying to
on,
figure out
Yeah,
60 to 80, now we're jumping around numbers. And
it's based on the question.
I'm just a words kind of person, like you already know, words matter to me, and I just wanna make sure that we're getting to the facts and the numbers, because you also mentioned in the beginning of your thing that we're looking for an approval. And I just want to make sure you're clear that there's no approvals made in a committee, you know that, right?
Well, approval or a recommendation to go to the full board.
Okay, just want to make sure, again, made it works. If this project is moved together, you mentioned it was 12.5 total cost to the city
Yes,
at the end, that's what it was?
yes, based on a 90% reimbursement rate of $125 million loan.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I put my notes right. Thank you. I'm good to know.
Mr. Traver?
Thank you, Madam Chair. George, have you ever submitted a project and withdrawn it?
Yes, that's, you can pull the report. It's happened. Obviously, when you get to the state level, the state has to approve it also, because we have to put an application in. So it's not a guarantee that if we put this in, that they're gonna approve it. This is another one of those reasons why you want to get on a priority list as fast as you can, because there's gonna be a cap. And depending on what the state wants to spend for the year, we may be above that cap number. So getting this in an expedited fashion, right, which we have everything geared up to be able to submit first day of when we can submit in June, we would like to be the first in line.
Let me be clear from my point of view. I am not, I have stated to different people in different discussions, I lean to favor this project. As a resident of this neighborhood, as a grandparent of 2 children who would probably attend this school, I don't have the misgivings expressed by Mr. Sokolovic. I think that this is focused on 3 schools in my general neighborhood, Beardsley not being in my neighborhood insofar as it's the east side, not the east end. But I think one of the reasons for the disparity or the isolation of this part of the city is that it's been neglected. Bryant actually did get renovated. And it was just a little surprising that Bryant was on the list originally, because Bryant had been renovated. It had been shabbily done for other reasons that I won't go into. And so it was in need of fixing up because it had not been well done the first time. But it is a school that had been renovated for whatever reasons, but not been well done. And so Bryant is a school worth keeping in that neighborhood. So I do understand why Bryant did not get put on this list. But the schools in my neighborhood have been neglected forever, if you will. That's rhetorical, obviously. And so something needs to be done. My concern, and I've been upfront with anybody that I've talked to, is that we have yet to have a chance to really hear from the neighborhood, despite my feelings. So I believe that we still need to make a better effort to reach out to the neighborhood. And in having a discussion with 2 members of the delegation, They both agreed with me. But they also both agreed that we need to get this submitted for the reasons that you've expressed. And that we can withdraw it if we need to. If the neighborhood comes out in strong opposition to this plan, that we can withdraw it at a later date. So my support is conditional on us making that good faith effort. The best plan that I've come up with at this point, and I qualify it as the best one that I have come up with. There may be somebody who comes up with a better plan. And I would be more than open to somebody's ideas for a better plan, is that we spend a solid week having meetings in the cafeterias of Hall, Edison, and Beardsley with intense, efforts to make everybody aware of those meetings. And then the following week, we hold a neighborhood meeting in Harding. And hope that the meetings that were held in those three cafeterias would stimulate discussion and awareness among the people that live in those neighborhoods. That there will be a bigger meeting in Harding. So that we have something better than the, I believe, less than 10 people that showed up at the meeting in Harding the first time. But I don't think that it needs to be done for us to act on what you're proposing here. Based on the discussions I've had with the two state reps and what you're saying, what you just answered to my question that I asked you at the outset of my time tonight, that we can submit a request for funding, and that if it turns out there is strong opposition in that neighborhood, then we have to reevaluate our position. Now, I do want to ask a few questions about the actual plan that you've put on the table before us. Mr. Sakalovic asked the one about the correcting the language at the outset. We went from 750 to 840 students in this proposal here before us. Can you explain what that's about?
So the state mandates that an outside agency do the projections for the next 10 years. So based on those projections, we had to shift from 750 to 840.
Okay. Those are they in the facilities master plan that we're going to go up, or where did that come from?
That was by an outside agency that was commissioned. Yeah.
I guess, Rob, some of the differences is that being right now, all three schools are K-6. So part of the projections is to look at, I think that's why it went up. Looking at 7, 8, and then we also have a model of, I think, usually 1 or 2 pre-K to 3 kindergarten, 3 first, 3 second, 3 third, and so. I think part of the model was they bumped pre-K up to 4 because there was that kicker to where they were trying to get more pre-K space inside of that school. And I think that's what pushed the numbers up. Knowing the state, whatever we propose as a number or whatever they do, the state's gonna come back and cut that in half. They're gonna come back and it's gonna end up being, no matter what we have, a 750 student school is what it is. We send them the edge spec. We let them look at it. We tell them what we need. It's almost like what we did for all of our schools that have been underbuilt. They come back and say, well, we're only going to give you dollars for this many students. And that's how they handle it right there. I would say it's better to be a little higher anyway. Let them work on it rather than, give them something at 750 and they say, no, we're only going to give you for 550.
First thought that crossed my mind when I saw the higher number was
Yeah.
that they've always lowered our numbers. So that was the first thought that crossed my mind, but I figured I wouldn't put words into your mouth. I'd hear what you had to say first.
Yeah.
But, okay, and then my next question is on page 4 of what I saw, I think it's page 4, that might be page 3. It's site development. And I apologize, but what my printer spews out is tiny print. So I have my magnifying glass to try and read it. But it's site development, and under that, traffic flow. It says, parent vehicles to remain on city streets and use established drop-off areas. Is there going to be any modification of Central? Because Lord knows you ain't gonna be dropping off on Boston Avenue. There's
So our
already,
goal,
there's
I'm sorry.
already, well, let me just finish. There's already a disaster that will be disappearing after this year from the charter school, where the parents all park on Boston Avenue, waiting to go into that parking lot to pick up their kids. And if we had anybody else parking on Boston Avenue to pick up their kids, it would be a disaster. And I would think a school that size waiting to pick up kids, because with the high school there, that was never an issue because the kids walk out and walk away. But if parents were picking up, I know what Blackham was like at school dismissal. It was a nightmare because those streets around Blackham were clogged with parents waiting to pick up their kids. And if you had busy streets like Seaview and or Bishop Malls and Boston Ave, it would be a nightmare. So would there be any plan to modify the street, widen the street? Because I thought everyone was going to be driving on property and off to pick up kids. But I
So-
guess you're not.
No, the intent was, we submitted this overview that we created. And because we didn't call it out on that, it ended up like this in the ed spec in terms of, on-street parking, on-street drop off. But we have opportunity on site. So if you look at the site plan itself, where you come in and you have the bus drop off, we add a lane there. Sort of like what we've been doing in many of our schools.
Yeah, so that's what I originally thought. The
Yeah.
parents would be driving that loop around in the back
Yep.
of the old high school and dropping off kids there. So that we
So
would,
that's the intent.
okay. So your sentence says on, existing in that section I just cited. It says, city streets. Site development,
Yep, traffic
parent
flow.
vehicles to remain on city streets and use established drop-off areas. And you're telling that my impression from your previous presentation was that wasn't the case. And now you're saying that's not the case. So that either needs to be corrected or,
We will amend that. There's
Okay.
plenty of space to do a parallel path here for parents. As you can see where you have the bus drop off in red, you can continue forward and do a parallel for a parent drop off. There's plenty of space on site.
okay. All right, that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Just take, going back off of his, comment about the capacity for 840. Is the idea that all of Beardsley, all of Hall, all the students currently are going to skip? Clarify that.
I think a good portion of that, I think that we have some underutilized schools where we're pulling in students. This is not my world, but understanding the heat maps that we've been utilizing for a lot of this. Some students will go to Hooker School, obviously, which is at 200 students now, with a lot more capacity, about 50% underutilized. So there is some shifting. Marin will see some relief in some instances. So as you build this school, things will start to develop in terms of the location of the building itself. And, that'll have some holistic changes in terms of, student population.
Mr. Williams? Go ahead.
I just wanted to add, I thought that I meant to add, the pre-K thing is true, whatever the number ends up being, that comment about adding more. Both of my granddaughters are going to Park City Magnet right now because that was the closest they could get to. So, you know, for the one I have and the next one, we expect will be going, you know, halfway across town to get into a pre-K school. So it's a much needed service in our part of town too.
Mr. Woodson, do you have any questions?
No questions, just a comment. I just want to, remind the, the board members here that, we are being, under the scope of the state right now. So, if we can make any progress, especially progress towards, opening school buildings and closing some of these old 100-year-old buildings, I think that'll look good for us throughout, the state. Thanks.
Mr. Benningham?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion to the full board, the end especially for the East End School.
Mr. Benningham made a motion. Committee members in second. I'll second it.
Second.
Do you have any questions to the maker of the motion? Any further debate on that?
There's a couple of questions that can come to mind. The chair was speaking, the upgrade from 840 to 750, from 750. Is certain, so we're saying none of these three schools, they have pre-K and the pre-K numbers are affecting that. Or wasn't the original plan put forth in the facilities master plan to have pre-K going in there? Was that something that we added after?
In the new school?
In the proposed master plan?
Yeah, so I think they upgraded 2 classrooms, from that perspective. If we can get 4, we're trying to get 4 pre-K classrooms that are gonna be in the school. So remember, it's a projection. So one of the things, they take the 8-year projection and they look at the highest of the 8 years that they project.
Right.
So, when they do that, the company at least, they said that number of 8, whatever it was, 836, 840, whatever it is, that's gonna be the highest is what they're projecting that will be in that area. Right now, that's not our number. I mean, obviously. I think the difference is when we look at the school, right now with the pre-K 6 classrooms, what this will do is this will allow kids in the area to be able to go pre-K 8. It'll allow that continuum to go through so that they can stay in the same school, have that experience in the school, and then from there, go on to whatever the high school is. Now, I'm not saying that just like anything else, is this gonna solve everything? There may be overcrowding. Just like everything else right now, we don't know. At this point, those are the projections of what the company has given us.
And I don't disagree with everything you said right there. And definitely continuity to all the schools should have been probably K to 8 from the beginning, like the rest of the schools. Maybe they would have higher capacity and would be in such a predicament as they are today. But however, my main concern in asking this question is because the master plan got a projection of 750. This plan has projection of 840. We are 90 higher from one projection to another, and the facilities master plan is predicated on a shrinking population in Bridgeport over the next 10 years.
That's right.
So which numbers are reliable in planning the future of this district? The facilities master plans number or this new firm? I think maybe we might need a second opinion on the demographics.
It's actually the same firm.
It's the
Who
same.
did the projection for this new school. Because obviously we have them and the state mandates an outside source that is doing those projections. It can't come from me,
Yeah.
or anybody in the district.
So do you understand my concern? Am I like,
No,
am I missing something that's obvious that I should be able to?
So-
Tell me that this is rational.
yeah, so those projections that they were given, if the schools were still being open, that's what the projection would look like for that school based on exit. So there were no schools that were closed. Those are the projections of what it would look like. Now, making a new school, projections are gonna change because what we're doing is we're modifying those and saying, okay, based on the new school, and if we took all the students, you know, and looked at the highest point and put them in the areas, this is what we could be looking at based on all those numbers, that 836. Could it be 836? Absolutely. Could it be less? Absolutely too. We're not there at that point to see if that's it, but that's why your numbers are a little, when you're saying 90 short. Really, those projections in the K-6 schools are only for K-6. They're not for pre-K-8 or pre-K-6. They're not for pre-K-8. So adding those in there is going to up that projection in the new school to a little bit higher value than what it looks like now.
So basically, overall, we're still expected to contract as a city in the next 10 years.
For that school,
Overall, because like the whole master plan, big holistic weave of things that gotta come together, which is predicated upon a shrinking population
right,
in the city of Bridgeport in the
Right.
next 10 years.
right.
So that still holds true?
I would say that I'm not the one who wrote the, you know, master plan, but the reality is that's what they're saying is going to occur. I think the expectations now is having those extra classrooms for pre-K and everything else could take away from some of those community sites and start bringing more back into the district. I can't answer that. Just like if something happens to a charter school in the next 2 years and we have to absorb all those children. How do we know? I mean, we're saying it's a projection of what they're looking at. They do it off birth rates. They take a look at, certain,
Development.
development, birth rates, they look at other factors that play in there. That's how they come up with their numbers. Realizing we're in Bridgeport, anything could change at any time. So again,
Get some good government.
that's right. That's right. So that's why it's my projection, you know?
Okay, final question. As far as, the per pupil cost that were mentioned, I think more fair for capacity costs, especially since these schools do not have pre-K through 8, and it's the numbers are kind of skewed, because if they were at full capacity and they had pre-K to 8, the cost per pupil would go down.
So it was done two ways. One was cost per square foot, which is industry standard, and which is another industry standard to balance that, understanding the efficiency of your building. It was done cost per student. So that gives you the clearest picture because it takes both ends of the spectrum and analyzes it.
So when you look at cost per square foot, do the tiers stay the same, as far as the 3 schools being the most?
Yes, so for instance, cost per square foot, Beardsley, Hall, Park City Magnet, Edison. Cost per student, Hall, Beardsley, Edison.
Thank you. That's all.
Chair, you asked me to look at this document and I'm looking at it now, the last sheet with the numbers. I see there a number there. It says reimbursement rate. It says 68.57. Why is that? Isn't that the reimbursement rate that you gave me for a renovation? Not you. Isn't this for you? Or am I missing something there?
That's what we're talking.
No, I'm saying this is for new.
Yeah.
But I thought new was 60-40 with the other thing, the
I
68,
corrected myself.
the 68.57 was for renovation, right? No,
No, I had corrected myself. I said 60-40, and it's 68.57. I should have been accurate because I had a doc.
okay,
For renovated, I mean, for new construction. And then renovation is the 78, whatever.
and you said 80-20%, yeah, okay, so that's the right number, okay, good. I got it, correct, my note, thank you.
Right, there's been a motion and a second. Committee members, do you have any further? So motion to move this to the full board, it's on table, please say aye.
All right,
Any opposed? Any questions? All right, that one's going to the full board on Monday. The next one is discussion of possible action of the full board of the expert for the specialized school.
So. One of the things that when we look at the district and we look at what we've been going through over the last year the cuts and, you know, having to make strategic moves to shrink the budget. One of the things that's been reoccurring is that special ed and the cost for out of district placement is one of the things that we have to have better control of, right? You know, we go to the council, we say we need more money and, you know, we have to find a way to start to shake the tree here, ensure that we're getting the most efficient use of our dollars. So when we do ask for funds from the state, from whoever it is, they understand that we're doing everything possible to be as efficient as we possibly can. So that theory of all of that started a conversation. And this is a conversation that's been happening for a very long time. I know that there's been conversation about building something to help stave off the cost of out of district placements has gone on for a long time. But we wanted to do something that actually put pen to paper. And when we saw that we were gonna have the potential of the Bassick site, we started talking. Wow, imagine if we took the Bassick site and did X on it. Understanding that there's a good economic development path for a Bassick site. And that we're moving Skade to Winthrop. We pivoted to the Skade site. So what we have here is, and this once again is me and Mike going out, doing some scale measurements of what we could do on site. And we, you know, take once again, putting everything on site circulation and the whole nine. And we just wanted to lay something out to see if it was a feasible project, which we realized it was. To that, we would propose to build a specialized center on the Skade site. I know Dr. Avery and PJ can speak more to that.
Yeah.
That would help us to start to change the dynamic of special ed, to start having an offering here in Bridgeport that is substantial. You know, there's been a lot of work and a lot of discussion about how that would look. I know that PJ and his group have been reaching out to hospitals, universities that have, you know, the curriculums or specialties in these areas. You know, trying to see where we can create partnerships with UB and other entities, because we understand that we got to start doing things differently in Bridgeport. We have a tendency of doing the same thing and trying to find a different result. We all know how that works. So we put something together that we think can help to start to change the tide a bit in terms of special ed. So if you guys want
Yeah,
to.
I'll take the first part of it. So this special ed building basically is going to be pre-K to 12. Okay. We're going to start it off with pre-K to 8 is how we're going to start it off. But we realize that once these students are in 8th grade, we would need a wing to have a continuum. So when they're in 8th grade, we're not sending students out again. They're in the same school, in the same facility. They're just going to go to the high school wing and they're going to start high school. We're not planning to bring back high school students into the school immediately. So the enrollment's going to be a little bit low. We're going to start with our pre-K, build it up all the way to 8th grade. And then from that year, when we start to build, we're going to be focusing on our pre-K and 8 population. Understanding that while we're focusing on that, we're going to start building out this high school component, because it makes no sense to build a school just for pre-K to 8 and then send these children out somewhere else where we have to pay for them. Why not keep them in the same school, have a wing that houses our high school population at this point, and allow our high school students or those 8th grade students graduating into high school to stay with the program inside of that same school building. But
Yeah, and I think back to the chair, really trying to make sure that this whole process with special education and expanding the continuum of services is a massive undertaking. So I think one of the things that we're wanting to do is to incorporate the Bridgeport Learning Center into play, but expanding upon the great thing we're doing with that particular school. Having a brand new site for them, and then really looking at how we're programming that facility, into this new facility, because if we don't build the programs in-house, we can't bring kids in-house. Because the reason why they went out of district placements because we could not serve them in district. So we have to be able to create and redefine and redesign programs that's going to meet the needs of autistic students, cognitive delays, emotional disabilities, sensory impairments, and a magnitude of different other learning disabilities within our district, and we got to do it very well. So this will be a great start for our district to be able to, really, turn the leaf on an area where we're spending a lot of money sending kids out. A lot of kids and a lot of families would like to be close to home with their families on the day-to-day and being able to kind of make that connection with their regular peers within our district as well. So this is a great opportunity, and I can tell you, I've talked with a lot of superintendents and state legislators across the state, and the focus of there's a lot of legislation out there that's going to help district bring more of those dollars back into the district for programs, to expand upon the programs that all districts across Connecticut are doing for kids with special needs. And so again, this is a great start. There's no guarantee that we will even get the funding for the campus, but I think we're probably one of the largest districts spending the most money, millions of dollars, for out of district placement. And so if the state feels that they can provide that opportunity for us in-house to build the program, I think we need to take that opportunity and really, take it and really do a good job with it. So,
Yeah, I'd like to jump in for a minute. So we did work with the technical assistance team and we took their recommendations. At first, we were looking at having a regional special ed center, or at least looking to build it so that we can start getting costs and bringing money in from the surrounding towns and everything else. One of the things is that we weren't ready for that. The recommendations were that if we built the school to start off with Bridgeport Public School students, and then build that to a regional center at this point, once we make sure that this school is able to operate in the manner that we need it. I mean, we need to have certified teachers. We need to make sure that the programs are running properly. We don't want to get an X on, Bridgeport. We want to make sure that while we're building this facility for our children, that we have the capacity to be able to make it, if we decide to, and the board decides with us, to make it a regional special ed center, then we could have that also. Before we put the ed specs together, it was the one big thing that I wanted to make sure. If we decided in the future that we wanted to do this, were we able to do this? And the state said, yes, we could amend and make it if we decide a regional special ed center.
Yeah. And to that point, the way that the site is, we can add, if we needed to build additional square footage, we have the ability to build additional square footage. Now, the other piece to the specialized center is that the state reimbursement rate on that is 95% on a $75 million program. I mean, that's 2.95 cost to the city taxpayer. I think that's one hell of a bang for the buck. And not only is that a great deal for Bridgeport, it gives us the ability to now start turning the tide and bring those dollars back. If we can start to bring back dollars and start to really look at how we're operating, we're showing good faith on our part. We talk about the fiscal responsibility constantly. I hear you loud and clear for years about how we're coming to a point where we need to start looking at things differently. When we operate, I know that my team, we look at this like a business. Can we afford that? And if we buy it, can we sustain it? Because that's part of it, right? The sustainability of anything. And at times, because there's a need, you make the investment, but you don't think downstream. We can't think like that. We don't have the ability to continue to think like that. It's time for change. These are drastic changes, right? They're disruptive, but it's time for disruption.
Big question. I just want to say that the same issues from what Mrs. Bobby pointed out with says adopted in this packet, so let's amend that. And then somebody else had pointed out the trigger for the traffic flow.
Okay.
This one will be on site, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
that needs to be amended as well. But we'll take questions from committee members first. Mr. Van.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to listen to you, made me emotional, even tears. So this is an amazing project, and I know, like you said, I'm trying to save money here for us because I know we got our students around a different city and we pay a lot of money, especially when it goes to special education. And this is something that will be, like you said, the first time, it's something history, why we have to have children outside when we can have it here in our city. So I know parents that will listen and leaders and everyone, now the board members, I know that will be, exciting to have something like that. And, I'm very glad that I will approve this 100% just right now. Because guys, how I am with special education. You know how I stand your rest about special education. That they read to all of us. But when it's about special education, you guys know we are 100% there to support. Because that's what we need. And that's what our parents need. Something parents, they say, why my son or my daughter have to go so far away? This and that, worry, something happened, something to communicate the time. And they're gonna know they're gonna have something here in Bridgeport. Trust me, the parents will be happy, so I'm very glad you guys bring this. I know it's a process, it's a protocol, they take time to approve. People, they think we're gonna do this tomorrow. Sometimes people don't understand the message. There's a protocol. You have to bring it, to the committee, we talk, we discuss, but it will take time. But from now on, for the record, I will say yes for this, so, I will support you for this. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Woodson?
Yes, I wanna congratulate the staff that worked on this. This is an excellent thing, like Mr. Benahan said. This is a long time coming. We've been talking about it for a long time, but it's been getting shut down. But I'm glad now that everything is gonna be starting to come to fruition. We're gonna start being able to bring money back to the district. We're gonna be able to look at the state and say that we're being responsible with the money that we're being given. And when we ask for more, they won't have a problem giving it to us, hopefully. So I want to thank you guys. You're doing a wonderful job. That's a wonderful thing you're doing.
Well, Mr. Traver, then Mr. Collins. Mr. Traver, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I thought you said somebody else before me, Madam Chair. Yeah, I concur. I one minor disagreement with Woodson. This is a vast difference over what was previously proposed and a vast improvement over what was previously proposed because it is a site that will be dedicated to the special ed kids. The other site proposal had been one that would be half special ed and half expelled kids, if we recall. This is going to be a much larger site, a much nicer site, and one that will be used for the special ed kids, and a much more attractive site. And I think about the tour I took of BLC here, last year, and to think that those kids would have a new site like this is just, as Albert said, a wonderful thought. So I applaud you for that. And I think you answered my greatest fear was, can we do this and make it work if you're already talking to the technical assistance team guys, and they're agreeing that this is a worthwhile thing for us to step into, because I know Mr. Medina and I sitting on the CES board, everybody's sort of trying to figure out how can they set up a site to attract new business, if you will, to be crass, frankly. And we want to make sure that we do it right and we do it well for our students first. And then if what we're offering and doing well, and we have had our problems, if we're doing it well for our students, then other people will be interested in participating in the program that we set up at the new site. So I applaud you for what you're proposing, and I'm happy to hear the state technical assistance team is participating in these discussions. Thank you.
Mr. Collins.
Yes, a couple of questions on them. Much more supportive than as many questions. Like it's not uprooting the communities. let's moving parts in this, but I do have some concerns if I will support them. Definitely want us to go ahead and try this. Some of my concerns is, okay, as far as the building, we had discussed when the city, when the board basically was being good neighbors and gave part of our property away for the city to gain rental income off of, that's not coming back to the school district, a piece of that parking lot. Where is that located? On the
That
state,
is
on
outside of this.
the left side?
The left side of the building, right?
It's in this rear corner where it says fields,
Yes.
this farthest area right here, but it's a very small parcel that drops down around 20 feet.
Right.
So it's not usable.
But if we still had that property, we could have rented it out and had the revenue for ourselves, right? That's good. Anyway, that's in the signs. People need to know where the money's going, where we're trying to get it. Okay, now the second thing is, I believe I might be mistaken, but you said there was a issue with the sewage drainage or something on that property that we wouldn't be able to use it anyway.
So there is currently septic on site. In further exploration, there are opportunities for us to bring sanitary lines, water and everything to the building. So we're gonna follow the same path of the current water lines in order to achieve that. So obviously, we don't wanna blast and we don't wanna do all these things. And there's still some feasibilities that have to be done, which should be commissioned. The school building, or the city council commission, the feasibility studies. But our first go through, we feel that this can happen.
And that's-
And you know, as part of that, that'll be a costly feature of this building to be able to get to that.
Is it incorporated into the?
Yes. Everything is incorporated into the dollars baked into the budget.
Okay, and as far as economies of scale of making this work, as Mr. Traver said, is a lot of districts are trying to do the same thing. And if anybody sat through the hearings, the special education hearings where the private entities came out in force, the private entities want us sending people out.
Of course.
Sure. They want us kicking us people. Even to the state, to some extent, profits off of our children by going to their special education sites. And correct, was it correct and the system, the very people that fund us actually call back some of our students and some of the funding through their program. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get pushback from the state on stealing their revenue from their programs to bring our children back and try to expand and take some more of their students and bring, like, say, a Trumbull student or a Stratford student closer to their hometowns. It would be a less restrictive environment for them and they have more learning opportunities. So do you think
So,
that's?
the regional side, Joe, of that, we haven't approached that, as we said. So we're looking at right now our students. And yes, if there is a program that is inside of the, brand new facility that we didn't have before, then yes, the opportunity is there for our children to be brought back. And that's just the way it is. The reality is, when we're building the facility, this is when we need to make sure from a programmatic standpoint, we're hitting those areas and those pockets that are in most need for the Bridgeport Public Schools, right? Some of our kids who are medically fragile, who, or hard to service, it's gonna be hard to bring those children back. But the reality is, if we look at the areas where those are the highest level of students that we're outsourcing, those are the target areas we're gonna look to bring back, set programs. We've already done our homework as far as we've been out to multiple facilities and we're going out to more. We're going out to New York, I think Pennsylvania has one. We're trying to go and make sure that when we build this facility, we're not missing anything. That it's state of the art, that when children come in, all of the needs are met based on, based on their area of disability, let's put it that way.
Do we know, what the highest disability is that would be feasible to bring back? Like, what's the autism or, I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure. We haven't really analyzed that intense because a lot of it depends on the needs from the PPT. So
Right.
what we'll have to do is evaluate the PPT based on why the kids was sent out and what's being serviced in that entity. And then from that point, could we bring them back into our facility because we have the same, because we have an opportunity to say, instead of paying $250,000 for that facility, we can bring that in-house and provide them this. But you have to work through that through the PPT
Right.
and a lot of process, the evaluation, the test, the things that we have to look at to say we can do the same thing.
Right, yeah, but what I'm talking about is like just do that, like an analysis perhaps beforehand, say you got, I'm just gonna make up autism again.
Yeah.
And somebody on the spectrum, whatever level, and you've got 20 kids and you could build an awesome program that's better than the ones out there. When you go into the PPT, you can say, we got this program now, we're going to propose this program, it's gonna be better than this because it'll have a higher staff members, right? Because we can afford it, we know we can afford, because right now, if we try to sell it to them before we've got that infrastructure or a plan for that infrastructure in place, that would be less likely to want to take their children out of somewhere.
Right. And so we wouldn't even propose that to them now to rebuild it.
Right.
This is a different, unique situation where you have to have the program built before you can even start doing that. And what in my head, a lot of the kids that are at VLC, we program them the things that they're doing now already. So how do we expand that? And let the VLC kids experience that expansion. And as we grow it, we know that it's serving those kids' needs in a more profound way in order for us to continue to build upon that. So, and then also going to other sites to see how there's so many innovative, facilities now that we can really kind of, replicate within our setting. So those are the things we're looking at. But we know the cost of every kid. We have a list of every kid in our district and what we're paying for that district placement services. We have some kids that we spend over $1 million on. But those kids with higher needs, they stay at the facility. There's no way we're going to be able to bring those kids back in. So we know that we won't even hit that level of care within our system. But there's a lot of kids right in the middle that if we build a system, we're going to be able to look at how we're going to bring those kids back in. And it is a very integral process, but you got to go through PPT. The district can't say, you're coming back here. It doesn't work that way. It is a mutual perspective with the parent to say, if we come to our system, come to our programs, let's let you go through the program, let you feel and understand what the program is all about. And then you make that conversation about, would you give us an opportunity to bring your kid back? There's beautiful ways to be able to do that. It's just a process that we have trained staff. The way we do business with special ed needs to be different. And it's all about a caring, building of the relationships between the parent, the student, and the schools, and the caregivers within the schools to make sure that you make a program that's going to be worth me as a parent bringing my kid back to. And so there's a lot of different things that we have to take care in this facility for sure, to maximize what we do and how quickly we can get those kids back in.
I think the other thing is the area. So when you sell a program and you want to bring parents back, you have a brand new building, but in a certain area where you bring that, it entices other people to feel, that, wow, I want my child to go to this program, to this school. And that's something in Bridgeport where I say, I'd like to get to the point where every school is that desirable. Like when we talk about a school, it's nice to say, well, why are we going to X school? Well, why don't we want to go to X school? We've got to get to the point where with Bridgeport schools, we're selling every school. In other words, we're motivating families to stay in their neighborhoods, go to their neighborhood school. These are things that we've discussed and talked about, but still when you look at controlled transfers, there are a ton of those that are coming through. And I think that's another factor that for another time, we're going to need to have a discussion on.
Through Dr. Irby's leadership, one of the things that is refreshing is that we're getting outside of the box. Right? We're not just looking at it from our lens. We're actually getting out there and going to these different programs and seeing things from a different perspective. And I think that's something that, to me has been very powerful in this journey, because understanding what others are doing, if they're doing it well, why recreate the wheel? Let's expand and build.
Final question. Permit costs. The city charges us to file permits for schools, which they basically in essence own, that we turn over to them after we're done with them.
Yes.
Just one thing.
Mr. Medina?
I saw that too, and I was like, wow, all that money for permits, 1.5 and $2.2 million. Same thing that Mr. Traver said, I was gonna try to skip Joe, but Joe wouldn't. See his notes. You know, we go through the CES meetings and we know, so I appreciate your words, PJ, that you said that we're not bringing those out of district kids in until we have the program lined up with our kids. So I also want to make sure that the challenge to make sure that we have, again, that's the we just spoke, that we gotta make sure that we have our program set in this building before we even bring any of our first kids inside that building.
Absolutely.
Because it's gonna be a challenge. And like you said, when he left, but same sentiment as George said, we're not reinventing the wheel. So I'm glad we're going out there and checking out, other things. It's been bestowed on me that, George, some understanding and knowledge of other districts and other cities. And maybe as we're not reinventing and we're trying to do things differently and just to consider in other bills or even some of these, who knows? About playgrounds that I hear New York having playgrounds on top of the schools.
That's out of need. That's out of need and that's
That's not what?
that's out of need because
Yeah.
of their footprint, but
Well, of course, yeah, but it's interesting because some of our, buildings are older or whatever, and then we don't have the space in it. So when you say fields here, just for,
so we're talking about dedicated special ed playscapes, outdoor classrooms, getting those students outside of the building. Remember, this is also a tranquil area. So when we had the opportunity, me and Mike got the opportunity to put our hands and start to sort of lay this out in our mind. You get a chance, go to skating and stand out there. It's kind of quiet, it's serene, it's such an inviting sight for this type of programming. So we're excited about the potential. Listen, we're excited about the potential of all of this. We're excited of the potential to continue to forge forward. Although we have fiscal issues, we also want to provide solutions.
yeah. So when you talk about fields, it's just basically playground, and then I was gonna ask about the playscape circles that we have here.
Yeah, so fields, open fields, playscapes,
Or is that green now?
There's some green, there's some asphalt, it's a mishmash of things. There used to be a trailer there, it's no longer there. I mean, that building's seen, its better days.
Now, we saying 75.5 square feet. How many classrooms are we looking
So,
at?
so that number, that was me and Mike when we first laid it out, just to get a scale of what we could build there. The building would be right around 45,000 square feet based on the populations and as we grow. But what we do is, and the reasoning behind us wanting to lay out a bigger building, because that potential is if we do get it right and start to develop the workforce here and we find the right partnerships and we have the ability to now regionalize, we have the ability in the square footage or the acreage on site to add to the building. So, we think short and long term here when we're talking about this program. We haven't left any leaf unturned, I mean, I think it's important for us to think big.
So what am I looking at here? Cause now you gave me, I referenced a 75.5.
So
That
that
just
gets
said 45 square feet. So what are we, because then we're talking about permits over here and there's dollar amounts.
that's based on the 45,000. Everything, the dollar amounts are based on 45,000. The layout is just reference.
Okay.
The layouts are just reference, just like
the match. I'm sorry. I just don't, I need to.
Just to see what could have been.
No, I've heard them before about adding, so that's what I was gonna ask, because when I look at this, where are we adding, where will we be adding if we wanted to add? When we.
Yeah, so that'll be a shrunk down, that's us tinkering,
So 45,
big architects.
45K square foot, how many classrooms will be in that building then?
So for us, that's another aspect, depending on the programs that we bring back at this point, what it's gonna look like from a class size. The state mandates how much space a
Classroom size.
classroom size is based on a student and a student with disabilities. So they'll mandate Yes, in other words,
They can't mandate a building to be built on a student's need. We build buildings and then we bring kids into.
so when they look at that, it's a square footage per, because in a certain room where you have 29 students, your desk could be put together at that point. You're building certain rooms. It's based on the footage that the student needs, and it's a different footage
Yes.
than what a regular classroom's need is. So the classroom, although it looks the same, it's not gonna have the same number of students inside of that classroom. And some of those classrooms may actually be spaces where we're going to be able to bring children to do other things in those spaces. Not in a classroom space, but like they'll tell you, like what we've seen, where it could be a sensory room, where kids are gonna go into this room because this room is built for them to get in there because they need to get in there. So there are other type rooms. We've looked around and we've mapped it all out. When we start going really through what the building's gonna look like, we can tell you exactly how many rooms that we expect us to have with all the other amenities to help our children in those areas that need to be helped. In other words, swings, we may have to have a room that has swings for kids to be able to get. There's all kinds of things that go on at this point. And I don't think that's all been 100% mapped out yet.
Yeah, and building capacity, the same thing. We don't know what building capacity, now we're going from 75.5 to a 45K square foot. So we don't know what the building capacity is gonna be needed.
So it was broken down based on 45 square foot, that what we were looking at based on the highest could be 263 children.
It's that 45K square foot still, because I see here, 2 stories, that's still starting at its 2-story. We don't.
Once again, that's just a reference. That is gonna look different. That is just a reference for us. That's just a reference for us to make sure that we had enough buildable space, we have fields, play games, all of that. When you start talking about programming in square footage per pupil and all of that, me and Mike we don't do that. So for us, we are making sure that the site is a feasible site in order to build on and what we can potentially build.
Let me give you a little homework for me. I know you guys are visiting other sites, and my understanding is you guys already visited other sites. So I want you to take note of that, because when you go to those sites, find out what's their square footage and how many students they have in that building. Because it's gonna matter, because when you have a classroom that you only can have 2 to 5 kids in that classroom, because at a type of classroom, you can't tell me that you're saying that building has a capacity of 262 kids, when that one classroom is not at 29, it's not at 20, that's the plans.
Yeah, right now they have about 60 children that if we looked at it right now, if you look at the projections without anything else, those 60 children would be going inside the new facility.
So, I mean, DLC is possible in building and we're gonna have empty.
But at a certain point, yes.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Just in general, I'm not saying dates or anything, that's 5, 10, whatever year down the line. I've always been from the beginning that I've heard about us trying to build a special ed. When I met with the state people, they just said, you guys can help us with that, and that's definitely something that that'll help, and it'll help the economy for all of education for our kids.
They provided a lot of guidance, technical assistance team. I don't know, one of their members, at
Dr. Abby, yeah.
at Avon has built schools
Yeah.
and understands this intimately. So we have a good group of folks here that are that can support our efforts. But once again, we have to start somewhere, right? So we're ensuring that site makes sense. The state has a specific amount of square footage that you can build out for for different programming, and that's how we capture all of that. So we do have criteria that we follow in order to get to the numbers and sizes and all of that. We can't overbuild and decide we want to build something bigger than what the state will allow.
Right. And for our self-contained classrooms at a certain point that handle a plethora of students that are in there, our max size has been 12. Now, although some classes may have, for whatever reason, gone to 13 or whatever, that really they try to keep that component to 12. So if you look at 12 and then you look at each grade level, we've also got to look at, I think, our highest grade levels are really high school when you're looking at this right now. But we want to build a continuum from pre-K forward so that when they're going through the program, we can also take the needs of those children in the younger grades at the earlier ages and work on their disabilities also early. So you can get early work on all that. And then once they're going through the program, they would have the opportunity to stay till 12th grade or at this point, 22 years old, inside of the program. So taking that in consideration when we're bringing students in, there'll be a methodology to where this kind of students that we're going to bring into the school, our understanding is going to be hopefully that they'll stay with us throughout the program and then they'll go on at that point.
I don't know if it's through you, Mr. Traver, or what committee would, but I would love to see a comparison or like to know like how many, K through 5 or, 6 through 8.
Yeah.
Or how many are out given our district? That'll be a good thing. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Benninger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm making a motion to the full board of the specialized school.
I'll second that. Ms. Carey, you have a final, question there?
But no, I was gonna second it. That's okay. Thanks.
Oh, all right, Mr. Carey, do you have anything?
All I was just gonna clarify was that when Mr. Sokolovic was talking about CREC is a regional education center like CES. So it happens to be an extremely large one in the Hartford area because of the Chef Award. And CES down here is much smaller, but all of them are regional education centers created by the state many, many years ago. And CREC up in Hartford is huge compared to the rest of them. ACES in New Haven is pretty large too, but CES is the same organization created by the state. It just is, CREC is larger. So when Joe talked about CREC and testifying and fighting for money, et cetera, and competing, it just happens to be a whole different level of competition than CES down here. But they are all the same type of organizations created by the state. So just a point of clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There are no further questions. We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Passes. Thank you for that update. The next item is the Bassett decommissioning update.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna take over.
That way, the
Yeah, we're gonna- Are you going to take it?
No, I mean, I'll talk about it. a little
Oh, that's-
for
We'll start with the decommissioning.
Thank you, everyone.
See everybody leave. For the record, thank you. I know you do an amazing job. I know it's not easy. You want to do a lot of things. I trust you because I know you want the best for our children. And it's a process, the protocol, people don't understand that, but I have a faith and trust me. I know you and your team will do a amazing job. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Really?
Thank you.
Want to put them?
Good evening. George asked that we do a quick update for you. Our team has been working since March 1st. We began with our department, started removing custodial supplies that won't be needed, that we usually use in the summer for waxing and preparing for this for the next school year. The decommissioning team met with each department head. So we have a tradesman in our department, Dan Bohuli. He met with each department head. And he said from the day he met with them, their cooperation has been tremendous. They informed their staff of the tasks at hand, and the staff members immediately started organizing things that need to be removed or moved over to the new Bassett. Any items not being moved to New Bassett or deployed to another school, as we said in the past, within the district will be left for the determination of being auctioned or recycled. And we're not moving furniture at this time until everyone's moved into the new Bassett, so that we know what's needed at New Bassett and what can be deployed to other schools within the district. We began to organize supplies, equipment, and materials, packing and labeling those packages. You'll see photos on the next few slides. We removed 7 30-yard dumpsters already and several 3-yard dump body truckloads to recycle metal and other materials over the last 9 weekends. These are some before and after photos of storage closets. You'll see that the before has all the boxes, papers, there might even be books, and the after. We've moved any books that are labeled by the staff or department heads that are being moved into other areas. So each department has their own map music. Next photos are just explaining to you that if you do walk Bassett right now, any empty shelf you see was not empty before, it was full. And that's what's been moved or removed or boxed up and labeled. Each department, they are packing and labeling their own boxes. These are boxes of textbooks and supplies. You'll see it says Science Department, room 360. Those will be moved to the new Bassett. So currently they're in room 60. They're not sure what room they'll be moving into yet, but they'll know that that's that room's supplies. All the rooms are proactively being labeled to avoid the future process of looking through those spaces and cabinets. So if we've already gone through a cabinet, a drawer, we mark it empty so no one has to go back in there when we move out to see that those are empty. These are some photos of one of the music rooms. Currently, many of those supplies and equipment and materials are staying because they're still being used, and they probably won't be moved out until towards the last day of school. So you'll see some of the keyboards in the second photo are wrapped and ready with bubble wrap and ready to be packaged up, while the other ones are still out because they're using. The main office already started packaging up supplies they know they won't need for the rest of the school year so that we can label them and store them. Same with music supplies and math supplies. We just wanted to show you some of the progress the last few months. Our plan is to leave the facility broom swept to be turned over to the city. And the last page is just some photos that I actually found the first photo in the 1969 yearbook when construction began on the second Bassett building. I thought that was interesting just to see the progress of the high school. I believe the high school, the first graduating class was from 1936. And that's the end of it. If you have any questions, we hope this is a drastic change from what was seen at Irving High School.
So, Madam Chair, if I may, for 1 minute on the same topic. So, with the decommissioning, we also have a planning and programming committee, for Bassett High School. So, part of that is aligning, teachers, in the old Bassett to the brand new classrooms in the new Bassett. So some of what we do from that committee standpoint, just so everyone's aware, is that we make sure that they are in a classroom and the classrooms are assigned to that teacher and or counselor or whoever it may be. Once that's set up, we work with Principal Lip and Dr. Rayola. And from that perspective, we're also working on pathways, planning in the new schools, working with UB programmatically. So at another point, we'll talk about that and we'll bring out what's going on from that perspective. Just want to put that on the table.
Mr. Zenhan.
Thank you. So all the teachers, they really know what they're gonna take, forms for the new Vassar High School. And also question, I don't know, we did it last year. We went through the whole Vassar High School. We take pictures, things like antique stuff, that represent Vassar High School for so many years, the family. They're gonna put it for the new Vassar High School.
I believe, Dr. Rayola is going through that now, what he'll
Yeah.
be moving over to the new asset. And then I'm not quite sure exactly who makes the decision
Yeah.
on what remains, or that maybe the board would know better what might go over to the new basket. That is antique or historical.
Yeah.
And then anything else would be auction.
Because I don't know what happened at Harding High School. I know with the former Madam Chair, Miss Bobby Brown and George, we went through the whole Harding High School, right? And Bregman Hard, so many history stayed that. I'm talking history about students, teachers, a lot, trust me. So I don't want that to happen, so I know I went through, so I walk and trust me that I take a lot of pictures, because I want that history keep going to the new Vassar High School.
So Howard, that was brought up in cabinet today, exactly what you discussed,
Yeah.
that, with George and Dr. Avery, making sure that we go and we start tagging and looking at items to make sure that, they do come along with the school. So, I'm sure when George gets back, at this point, our next facility meeting, he'll update you on that.
Yeah.
But that's all taken into consideration to make sure we're not going to miss anything, to where we need to bring it over, from a monumental standpoint.
I went through last, sorry, sir.
So this week we were focusing on going through the gymnasium, so any jerseys that have been retired, we're making sure
Yes, you have,
We're well
Jim, yes.
getting in a lift and taking them.
You have history and that wall, and stuff,
Yeah.
that's very important.
And also like, Greg said, I'll go back to you. I won't cut you off. But making sure that not only we're bringing them over, but displaying them somewhere, like
Absolutely.
for whatever's in the gym, or, if we're like portraits or anything like that, we can make sure that dedicated space for that. Go ahead, I'll cut you off again.
That's good.
And there is, when you walk in, I mean, there's a big form, when you.
Yeah, I went to last week, the building committee. We went to visit the new Vassar High School. I almost need a scooter. It's huge, it's big. We went to a 3rd floor. We went room by room. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm sure you guys know how I am with Vassar.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's good. Just a starting when I see the main office there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I keep walking, everything, the 3rd floor, how big is the rooms? Before sign, stuff like that, the man. I'm telling you, all these staff, they were gonna be so excited, the gym, ooh, amazing. Cafeteria, huge. I feel the cafeteria was more big that French Avenue.
Right.
That's the way I see it. But when the kids inside, but it's amazing. I'm very proud. I know we have to go through again and stuff like that. So I'm very glad. So I don't have no question for now, Madam Chair.
Any questions online? Mr. Woodson,
No, not at this time. Thank you.
thank you for, sending
Appreciate
that,
it.
for keeping us updated. I know we'll have more updates as we get closer. And that's, the next item is the facility master plan update.
So, I'll take that, we've been meeting with, the, demographic study / facilities master plan team, so, Studio J and, MP planning. Finally, right now, it looks like we're on the end of our, journey with the, facilities master plan. Another 2 weeks, we'll have a final copy for the board at this point, which will complete both studies, or one study, but with both companies in it. We're planning to get it out to you as soon as that's done. I will confirm tomorrow and send an email on that date from the company so we can get it and send it out. I did take into consideration some of, there were a couple of grade levels that were needed to be fixed and changed. So we went in there and made sure that every school, every grade level was updated properly. We read over to make sure that what was in there was current, to make sure that there weren't any changes. There wasn't anything that you didn't see. That master plan that's going out is probably gonna be somewhere around 60 pages, 70 pages, whatever it may be. Our goal is to get it to you. I did speak to the company about other districts, and what usually happens is, and again, our district is different, and I'm not gonna tell us what to do or what not to do. But other districts don't vote on the facilities master plan because it's a guide that we have. If there needs to be a vote, we can also do that too. It's a recommendation of basically what we need to do. Where the votes come in, they come in off of the ed specs. The ed specs are the ones that we look at and we vote and go through. Now, if you decide you want us to bring it and you need to vote to say, this is something that they're not gonna take back and make changes to, this is something that is gonna be a final document of their recommendations to Bridgeport Public Schools. So I just wanted to put that out and make it clear. I think in the light of the master plan is supposed to show, obviously, our 10-year projections, our 10-year growth model of where we're looking to go, what we're looking to do. What it doesn't do is there are some cases, and I know it's been brought up to where we're looking to redistrict the whole Bridgeport or the whole school district, and that's been brought up. The company doesn't recommend doing any of that, so we took the recommendations from what the company recommended. And those recommendations that were there were based off what the company saw, based on the heat map, were those points, those pain points that we had to really look at in Bridgeport. I mean, they could have went a lot further, but understanding that we can't condense, we have to condense and expand. So you just can't shut down schools and say, we're gonna take all these students, and we're gonna redistrict them all into other schools. What you have, now you're taking those schools and now you're condensing it with a ton of children. So I think part of this process today in the facilities master plan is looking at how we can take this 10-year model, build upon Bridgeport Public Schools, understand capacity levels, and being able to have us, yes, at a certain point, I don't want to say even out, but have enough space for our students to be able to go to school and enjoy their school environment while being in there. That's why some of the new buildings that were proposed, or some of the areas down the line, some of those, like everything else, we want to give that child a learning environment where they're going to be happy. We want to give teachers an environment where they're going to feel they can actually teach it. Not saying you can't teach in the older environments, but it gives them, like buying a new home, a sense of, wow, this is brand new, this is my classroom. And the reality becomes a better environment throughout. So those are kind of some of the things that we looked at in the master plan. I'm sure this isn't the end of the master plan.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at, things that they talk about in there. We'll be talking about, can we do things? Can we not? I mean, at the district stance, I want to give you the finalized copy, and then we can decide how we want to approach all those other things once you have it.
Any questions? Mr. Bennett?
No question, but a comment. Yeah, I know everything is a process, horrible. But like I told Mr. Garcia, trust me, because I know where's your heart. I know you guys, went through a lot of things. And sometimes with us, we here, you guys outside deal with everyone. A lot of vendors, a lot of contract people, everything go back and forth. No, because they know what you want. I know not in the end of the day, these people understand you, like, it's okay. He's right. I know what he wants for the best for, Bridgeport Public School. And I know this master plan go for months, trying to work. People, they think master plan is like 1 second, you've done it, we approve it, that's it. No. the process. And I know you guys going through a lot of things, you know, but
Almost a year.
exactly.
Yeah.
Year, and people don't see that when you guys do behind scene, you know, working with a lot of people, not only what's for, you have to deal with the city, you have to deal with the state, you have to, when people come in the last minute, come to something, throw you on the table and you feel, okay, hold on a second, you bring this down, why you bring this down, we talk about, you know, it's a process, but, you know, I was just saying, you know, thank you, and, you know, you guys always have the support here. And then we see a team that works so hard to be sure our Bridgeport Public School, you know, and everybody be okay, including parents, staff, community, their leaders, everyone. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you. And I put the we in that.
Yeah,
Because
we,
everybody,
exactly.
everybody here
This way, yeah.
on the board too is working just as
Oh,
hard.
yeah.
You may not be technically involved in everything, but the reality is we all want the same for children and families, and teachers and staff
Mm-hmm.
and administrators. I mean, that's our goal to make it right. And that's why we're
But,
here.
it's true, you said, we may involve, but we have something coming, everybody be, because we got communication. I know you guys outside there, but you let us know what's going on, we know what's good and
Sure.
what's bad, and what you're going through. Without communication, how we gonna go, you know, forward, and I really appreciate that.
Mr. Traver?
Yeah, in an environment where perhaps we could just have a civil discussion. PJ, when would you do a school redistricting plan?
So that's a great question, Mr. Traver. I think right now, what we did is as I said before, we went off the recommendations of, the, facilities master plan, demographic study. I guess it's very difficult in the sense that if we're looking at really redistricting, you know, and taking a look at what we have, I think part of doing that is knowing where we're going. In other words, if we looked at the buildings right now and we just took what we had at this moment, without any closures, without anything going on. When we look at redistricting, we'd have to have methodology behind it. Is it to even out schools? Is it to try to get closer to another vicinity? Those are things, once we know what we're really looking at from a standpoint of why we would need to do this redistricting, it would help us. Like, we look all the time at busing. One of the things on the quadrants, we're really looking at special ed programming and taking a look at why isn't there one in the north end, but north end children are going all the way down to the south end, to the South Point, to go ahead and get special ed programming. What if we brought a program into that north end quadrant, that could take those children and cut down the distance of travel and allow us to have a program in that area. Those are a lot of what we're doing now. We're looking at the special ed programming and the bilingual programming, but we haven't really broken down and looked at a full redistricting, because our high schools, however you look at it, our high schools are pretty maxed out as they are now. So any redistricting, you're not gaining anything off of that. Our elementaries is a different state, because when we do redistrict, what is it that you're going for? Are you going for less transportation costs? Are you looking at, again, evening out schools to where, you know, you want to make sure at least each building has, you know, 80 to 85% capacity? Those would be things we would need to discuss with the board to figure out, in doing that, what would be the methodology behind it to what you would want to see.
Well, I guess the question has come up in the heat of this. I mean, I understand we did a facilities master plan. We did a demographic study because the census was just done. But there are some historic questions about why we're districted the way we're districted. And some of those were raised. And I never heard a good answer, frankly. And I'm raising this now in the whole, you know, not so far as to try and look at them. But, you know, I do live in the district that's under the most review and dispute. You know, and some of them, I do know, I've heard over the years that I've been involved. And when was the last time we redistricted?
Probably, and again, don't quote me on this, but probably 2012, they did minor redistricting when not massive.
Right. And so we've tweaked.
Right.
Do you remember when was the last time we did a major citywide redistricting and sat down and really
You know,
sort of,
That's a great question. I don't know if I mean, I know the company who did the minor, the Young is the company, but the major redistricting, it hasn't been done since I've been here. I can tell you
Right.
that.
right, okay. So I don't recall ever. I just recall, as I said once before at a meeting, horror stories from friends about living in one place and going to school halfway across town.
Sure.
And it just never made sense to them. And that was over in the north end. And certainly Maria raised the question of why the states don't go to Hooker, which is a good question. And, I mean, some of those are really valid questions that are worthy of somebody being able to offer us a coherent question. And your very answer here, the answer is that nobody who's currently here now has any idea why, because they weren't involved in the decision. And it does muddy the water, if you will, when you start looking at the questions that we're having to deal with in this other in the facilities plan. So I just think that it makes things harder, and that's too bad, because those other questions, some of those other tweakings were done for other reasons, as we know how our city works, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I do think that there are some areas that moving a boundary line may help a certain area by having other children being able to go there. I mean, there are a lot of factors that are put into all this, and this is when you start doing that, it's major movement, because now you're moving boundaries, streets, addresses to say, hey, from now on, you're going to this school. And a lot of that boundary movement is also looked at with projections also. Projecting, if we move this boundary, what is this attendance zone gonna look like in 3, 4, or 5 years? Are we gonna have to do it again in this area because the projection we did wasn't right? I mean, some of those, there's always gonna be false positives and other factors that play into that, as you know.
Though it seems to me some of that we're going to have to look at as we, in a few years.
Yeah.
As we create, if we go forward, all on the assumption, if we go forward and we create a new pre-K to 8 school in the East End on Mill Hill, and we create a district for that school. We then have to create a new district, pre-K to 8 district that didn't exist before. And that affects other districts around it.
Absolutely.
Because what you said earlier was true. When my daughter started at Edison, she was there at kindergarten. And she was going to go to Edison kindergarten through 6. And then she was going to go to Marin, Munoz Marin. And then she was going to go to whatever high school, Central, Harding, I mean. And then, so it was like, and that all got changed for her, because she found out she got into the magnet school 3/4 of the way through kindergarten. But that was the normal progression, 3 schools, as you said. And so, this will change all that for this thing.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have to change the districts. Some of the kids from Beardsley will go to the new pre-K to 8, some will go somewhere else. Maybe some will end up at Hooker, some will end up somewhere else. I don't know. I haven't even looked at that, and I haven't heard anything. So there will be some redistricting, if you will, that has to accommodate the new schools.
And you're absolutely correct. We haven't looked at it either because everything that's in the plan is a recommendation. Once we know that right now we're going to start doing what it is we're going to do, whether it be put up a new building, whatever that may be, then we will start. Once we have it, then we'll start moving into those realms that you're talking about, which is to take a look at where we're going, who we're bringing
No,
in,
it's-
what areas, all that stuff. Yeah.
It's putting the cart before the horse. I get it.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you guys for presenting. Seeing no, yes, Mr. Benningham?
Very quick for the record. I want to be clear that because people, I don't want it very short, very fast. I don't want people thinking that we are here to make a decision to close schools because sometimes the message, people can get the message wrong. We discuss and talk about the future between like Mr. Garcia said 3 or 4 years, that's not something we're gonna close. We're not to talk about that. We're not making motion to vote, nothing like that. It's coming from we bring it to the board. So I want to be clear that for the record that we're not closing no school, nothing like that, because sometimes the message go wrong. So I just want to be clear that you guys bring it to us to the committee and then we talk about it. They take time. It's a protocol, it's a policy. You have to put a deadline, you have to put the application, stuff like that. So we can after 3 or 4 years, let's see how they done. I just want to put that for the record and I can make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
So,
All in favor?
aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you everyone for being here.
Adjourning
Good night,
at
everyone.
6:33.
Thank you everyone. God bless you all.
You too.